What is up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Dead Pixels podcast, where we are both, weirdly excited, but also just fundamentally displeased with the Dodgers-Yankees World Series.
Yeah, it's like, on a level, am I excited to see Shohei Ohtani against Juan Soto? Yes, I am excited for, those two players specifically. Those franchises at large can, fuck themselves. This feels like a very villainous World Series. It's no one wins. You've got, the two worst...
Major League Baseball wins.
Oh yeah, I guess because
the two largest
MLB
media
wins.
markets with the three biggest stars in Major League Baseball.
Yeah,
in the World Series against each other, so it's all good. Pretty sure Juan Soto's going to win at the end of the day. He's probably going to get a $600 million contract from somebody during the off season.
Watch him go back to DC.
That would be really funny, actually. Even though I know this won't happen, there's a small part of me with the new ownership. I'm like, David Rubenstein really wants to make a splash. Then,
ooh,
spending $600 million on Juan Soto could certainly
that would be a significant splash. Yes. No, I've completely at the moment the Orioles fumbled their way back out of the postseason the same way they fumbled their way into it. I was checked out on baseball. I'm gonna be real with you. So I've just been glad for hockey, and I've been glad that I can watch the Caps on streaming very easily.
3-1, looking not bad so far. This is a video game podcast. I'm your host, Brad, joined by my co-host, Carrie.
Yeah, what's up?
I was talking to my wife about the Yankees, and she's like, they're not as hateable as they used to be. I was like, yes, because they've been, not good for the last 15 years. Or not.
That's the thing.
Not bad, but just not what they were in the decade and a half prior to that. So,
no. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we'll see. Like I said, should be at least an entertaining World Series, if all else. You know what else has been very entertaining? I continue to traipse my way slowly but steadily through Metaphor ReFantazio. I'm about 25 hours in. The plot has continued to thicken. So I'm into the third city so far. I'm obviously not going to spoil anything. The second dungeon was pretty wild and kind of really harkened back to that trademark SMT weirdness. And I really like your fourth party member that you get. Arguably, I think it's my favorite Atlas RPG character that I've encountered.
Okay, so sick.
He is a pretty cool dude.
My partner's been continuing to play it while I am half asleep at the end of my day. I'm looking forward to eventually jumping in on it. At this point, it'll probably be sometime mid-November before I actually sit down and start on it. But I'm glad that it's good. I've personally just been continuing to play Monster Hunter Stories on Switch. God, the Stories games are so cute, and I think they're unfortunately really overlooked. But they're solid 8.5 out of 10 turn-based JRPG set in the Monster Hunter universe. So if you like turn-based games and you like at least the idea of Monster Hunter, even if you don't play the mainline Monster Hunter games, I feel like they're very easy to get into. And the writing is really funny, especially if you're a longtime fan. I'm a big fan of... So if you're familiar with the monster Devil Joe, people typically refer to Devil Joe as just the pickle, because he kind of looks like a pickle. And that was something that was started kind of by the fans first. And then within Monster Hunter Stories, they frequently refer to Devil Joe as a pickle. So it's that kind of shit. It's that little bit of give and take with the fandom that I really appreciate. Cool. So it's cute. I'm having fun.
I have a couple more Next Fest picks. By the way, there were 2,600 games that were available for demo during this Next Fest, which, while that's very cool, also very bad from an exposure standpoint. So it's kind of hard for stuff to get floated to the top, and obviously the stuff that catches on is going to really catch on because Steam will be floating it. I came across two more games. One that I liked a lot more than the other. The one that I like the most is a game that I think is coming out either late this year or early next year. It's called Ballionaire. Basically, it is what if you took Pachinko and made it a roguelike. So what you do in the game is you have these like different items that you can place on your pachinko board in between the pegs. And when the items are bonked, or like they all have an ability basically associated with them, and kind of the whole conceit of the game is to sync up the abilities so that they all kind of feed off of each other, so that you're getting a shitload of money on your drops that you do, because you have different plateaus that you have to earn a certain amount of money with just 5 balls as you go along. And it has all the roguelike conceits of like you can re-roll to get new looks, you can remove stuff from the board, you can kind of manipulate the game state in such a way that it advantages you. Again, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If there's a genre of game or just a theme that roguelikes don't work well with, I don't know that I've seen it yet, because somebody figured out how to take a game where you drop balls down into like a fucking peg thing and be like, you know what, let's roguelike that shit up. And it works. And I'm very excited for this game to come out. Apparently the demo for Ballionaire is going to be up for a couple days past the next fest, so if that sounds interesting, you could definitely give it a look-see. It's something you can easily put in 20 minutes to and see what it's all about. Mm-hmm. The other game that I played that I liked but didn't like as much is a game called Jotun Slayer Hordes of Hell. This is another Survivors-like, so again, Vampire Survivors-esque. Weirdly, this game reminded me probably most of a game called Soulstone Survivors, which is another one of these that kind of flew under the radar when it came out a year and a half ago, that was very similar to kind of like a Diablo-fication of that genre. The thing with Jotun Slayer, and I don't know that we needed this in this genre, because this genre is kind of known for having retro art style aesthetics and things of that nature.
Sure.
But this is the prettiest one of these that I've ever played before. Like, the graphics are really nice. And it's a very gorgeous game. And if that's kind of its thing, then that's well and good for it, but I think it also kind of misses the point of why Vampire Survivors is so addicting. The gameplay in this one is more objective driven. So like the conceit is as you're running around this small battlefield and killing enemies, and you have your timers that go off and do your attacks, and you're leveling up and getting new abilities and stuff like that. There's different like small objectives you have to fulfill that you have to run across the map for in the eventual summoning of a boss, essentially. And then once you summon the boss, you've cleared the run. The runs are short, which I think is good. A run only lasts about 10 to 13 minutes, give or take, which I think is pretty slick. I'm just worried that the objective piece of it is going to get a little lame, because it's literally just, hey, like, go here and collect 8 of these things, or kill these 2 bosses that you have to these 2 like elite monsters that you have to summon. Pretty basic stuff. So it's really got to be driven by the gameplay and the abilities, and so we'll see what that has, because obviously with demos we're not seeing the whole picture. So I have this wish listed. I will keep an eye on it and see kind of how it improves, but the problem is that Vampire Survivors is so good, which we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. And even like, if you want something that's more Diablo-esque, like Halls of Torment is probably the second best one of these that I've ever played. And that's also like a $5 game, and it's really fun. So, but I'll keep an eye on Jotun Slayer and see what happens with that. I have another game recommendation. This is going to sound like a bit of a weird game recommendation, but it's a good time killer. I have a affinity for like solitaire style games, like solitaire style card games. Just because like my grandfather taught me how to play a lot of those, so it kind of reminds me of him. And so I can get lost playing several hands of solitaire. And I came across a really good one, a really good collection of solitaire games, and it's the Zachtronics Solitaire Collection. So Zachtronics is a developer. They're not around anymore, but they've made a lot of like really small, kind of quirky puzzle games over the years. And one of their kind of gimmicks in all of their games that they put out, they always have like a solitaire mini game that they kind of throw in there. And this is literally just a collection of all of the solitaire mini games that they put into their games over the years. There's 8 of them in total. And if you like solitaire, this is just really good. Like I said, there's a lot of content here, just 8 really fun games. They vary from like traditional solitaire to, like freestyle style variants to cribbage style variants to, and kind of, kind of runs the gamut there. And they kind of increase in complexity. So there's a lot of reasons to keep coming back. I just think it's really good. It's really fun. So if you're a fan of solitaire card games, check out the Zachtronics Solitaire Collection, because I've been enjoying it quite a bit as like an in-between kind of thing. You threw on the docket as well that Hades 2 did get its first major update in early access.
Yes, they called it the Olympic update. I forgot until we started the podcast that I did a few runs after the update. A lot of stuff, a lot of major things on the update. Big one is you can now apparently reach Olympus itself now. The content wall has been kind of expanded. There are new characters. There's updated character art. Some of the nocturnal arms have been sort of like updated, have reworked specials. I have been partial to the axe. So the updated special I actually really like. There's the black coat, which I have not yet unlocked. I haven't gotten the necessary materials to unlock that. Apparently there's now a way to wake Hypnos. That's like a whole new thing you can do now. Athena is back. You can start getting her boons. You can also find Dionysus up on Olympus, and he is just lushed the fuck out. Like, he is like every other Olympic god is in like full blown, like, we are at war with Kronos, fuck this guy. And Dionysus is like, nah, I'm not into it. Like, and he's just hanging out drunk off his ass in a leopard print Speedo, and you can still get boons from him as well, but it's just kind of funny that he's just like, nah man, I'm just trying to party. In true Dionysus fashion. Yeah, I mean, I haven't done a surface run yet. I was basically like, I didn't want to let myself do a surface run until I actually got to the point of defeating Kronos again, so I did do that the other night. So now the next time I load up the game, which will truthfully probably be later tonight, I will attempt a surface run, see what happens there. Yeah, it's great. I think a big one that a lot of people were very quick to point out is like, and this kind of spoiler for what was there before, but previously, Kronos being the Titan of Time, if you tried to pause the game in the middle of his fight, he would basically tell you to go fuck yourself and forcibly unpause the game and resume the fight. He no longer does that, which I think is probably the move. That being said, there are still voice lines that he has when you do pause the game where he kind of like chastises you for having done so. But I have to imagine there are many instances of people getting like a phone call, or, you know, people who have kids around, or something happens in the house that is more important than a video game, and they went to pause, realized that they couldn't pause, and then ended up losing a run at Kronos.
Yeah, that's
because he wouldn't let you pause the game.
That's one of those ideas that seems like everyone in the like the groupthink made it seem like it was a really good idea, and they didn't bother asking anyone outside of the development team.
I think it's one of those things where it's like very kind of like clever in a way, but the fact that you couldn't just like kind of toggle that off, I think was the mistake. Like, I don't mind having that kind of like on as an option. I think it just should have been an option. And I think you should have been able to opt out of it without having to like jump through a million hoops in order to do something at the Witch's Cauldron to then allow you to fucking pause the game. Like,
that was actually that was actually an ability that you could earn. That's funny.
You had to like literally earn the right to pause it, and so I'm glad they reworked that, because I thought that was kind of dumb. I just thought it should have been an option. But the fact that they're now just like, no, like, we'll let you pause the game and then have Kronos just be like really snarky about it when you do choose to do it. I think that's really kind of the move, is the fact that, you know, he's still going to give you shit for doing it, but the game will still actually allow you to pause and do whatever it is you need to do outside this fucking video game. So yeah, still a lot to do. I mean, I never hit the true content wall in the first place. There were still characters that I had not yet met. So I'm still kind of chasing a lot of like the surface content. But yeah, Hades 2, big update, huge update, free update if you already have the game. That still is in early access. There's a lot of characters that still do not have finished portraits, stuff like that. They're very much still feeling their way through the balance of certain things and whatnot. So, you know, I know there are plenty of people who are waiting until the game fully releases to play it at all, which I get, but at the same time, the game does still feel very playable, very complete, even within early access. So cannot recommend it enough. And also, as a little teaser for listeners of this show, if you like Hades, I will have a big announcement later this week, and I will put it in the Discord once that happens, and I will simply leave it at that.
Very cool. Yeah, like I said, I agree with you that people should not be letting the early access piece of Hades 2 scare them away, because I felt like even the initial release had about as much actual gameplay content as Hades 1 did. Certainly not the level of story content, yeah. But there's definitely a lot of variety there. I saw this and I was like, maybe we'll come back. But there's too many other games that I'm playing right now, so I'll wait. It'll be there. It's certainly not going anywhere, and it'll be a nice surprise to check out that new stuff once it does come down.
Absolutely.
Let's take a quick break. We have some news this week, so we will get to that right after this. All right, so finally, something that I think, especially after the Contra update came out, seemed inevitable, is finally happening. Vampire Survivors, a game very, very obviously influenced by Castlevania, is coming full circle, because next week, on October 31st, appropriately, they are getting the Ode to Castlevania DLC pack, which is going to cost $4, and it is going to be the biggest update that Vampire Survivors has had to date. Part of this update is going to be 20 new characters, which includes all of the Belmonts, Belnadis, and other heroes like Soma Cruz from the Castlevania, all across the Castlevania franchise. 40 new weapons, including 8 new whips, specifically different spells, magic weapons, projectiles, and glyphs. Of course, a new stage, which is the largest map the Vampire Survivors game has ever seen, and 30 new music tracks, all of which are remixes and of original Castlevania music. This is going to fucking rock. I cannot wait to get this DLC and get back into Vampire Survivors, because this continues to be just one of the best fucking games that exists out there.
So, Vampire Survivors is a game where I completely understand the appeal, but like it's not really for me. But I am a huge fan of the music, so I'm very much looking forward to hearing the Castlevania by way of Vampire Survivors remixes that are going to be coming out. I also like I don't really play Castlevania games because I'm not good at them. I'm a big fan of the lore of Castlevania. I'm a big fan of just like the stories. I need to sit down and watch the newer Netflix series. What was it, Nocturne?
I haven't seen Nocturne either. I did watch, of course, the original Castlevania series that came out.
I really want to. That might be like my spooky ween kind of like binge watch is Castlevania Nocturne. I like everything about Castlevania except actually sitting down and playing the game.
Let me tell you. I guess it's because it's the season. But the algae is the little algorithm is really feeding me a ton of Castlevania content right now. I fucking love Castlevania. I've obviously been playing the fucking games for as long as they've been around, essentially.
Right.
I've been waiting for a good time to pick up the various collections that are out there, and Steam has like a 3-pack where it basically has all 3 of the collections on sale for like $30. So that's definitely happening right now. Like I said, this content is going to be fucking incredible. I know that when they did the Dead Cells collaboration last year, I think it was. They fucking knocked that out of the park. A lot of speculation too now that Konami seems to be, as I heard it said on another podcast, Konami seems to be seeding Castlevania all over the place right now, between the Netflix stuff, between crossovers with other popular games where it fits in nicely.
Yeah.
Gotta wonder if there's some fire behind that smoke, maybe that's happening right now.
Yeah, who knows? What I will say is the one Castlevania game that I have played quite a bit of is the arcade Marble game, which is really just a reskin of Konami's Marble Carnival.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're unfamiliar, it's a pusher game. So like you drop marbles and you're trying to push cards down and collect the cards in order to like then turn them in to get a fuck ton of tickets. I have an extensive collection of the cards right now. There's a few that like I still don't have. I think there are 10 total cards. And I think I have like 6 of them currently. But yeah, I'm a big fan of my little Meemaw gambling hours at the round 1 where I sit and I play either the coin pushers or the marble pusher, which is I've gotten really into it ever since they turned it into Castlevania, because it's Castlevania music and characters and pretty little art cards. And so yeah, I'm a big fan of that. But like when I started seeing that float into round 1s, I was sort of like, like, are they trying to get like this brand awareness for the Castlevania games back out there?
It's so funny just because like it seems like Konami realizes like maybe going fucking full bore into pachinko and making Metal Gear games that have nothing to do with Solid Snake or the Snake timeline is a bad business decision. So just like I said, it's just interesting. We're getting we got the Metal Gear. The HD remasters of the original games. We got, we're getting Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta. We're getting, we just got Silent Hill 2, which reviews say is actually great.
Shocking. Yeah. Shocking given that it was fucking Bloober Team behind it.
Well, but according to them, they're not making shitty games anymore, according to Bloober Team.
I mean, look, if we're getting the fucking Bloober Team redemption arc, I'm all for it.
Yeah. But yeah, where's Castlevania? Let's see a new something new in the Castlevania franchise. Whether you want to go back to like the Metroidvania style, or try the hand at 3D Castlevania again. I know that the Lords of Shadow series petered out pretty quickly after the first game. So
yeah, but didn't those sell pretty decently?
The first one did. The first one sold really well. Mirror of Fate was a weird like spin-off game that was still part of that storyline that kind of flew under the radar because it came out on 3DS originally before it got ported to the other consoles.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And then Lords of Shadow 2 was just a game that had too many ideas and didn't execute on any of them particularly well.
And that's 10 years ago.
Yes.
It's been 10 years since we've gotten a new Castlevania game, which is wild. Yeah, and that one got kind of little piddly shit reviews.
Yeah, so. I mean, there's been some, like, they made a, I don't remember where it came out, they did make a reimagining of the first Castlevania game for the Game Boy, which kind of came out to very little acclaim, so people don't really look at that one, but that's kind of the last, like, I heard the term coined Vintagevania, which I like, so I'm going to stick with that. That's kind of the last new Castlevania thing that we've seen. But again, the re-releases of the GBA and DS game collections has been really well received and has been pretty successful by all accounts, and those were remasters that were handled really well. So yeah, like I said, it just seems like we're on the precipice of something new.
Yeah, no, you're right, because we just got, what was it, the Dominus collection? Yeah, that was Dawn of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, Order of Ecclesia, which were all DS titles. And then they were like, by the way, here's Haunted Castle, which nobody was asking for.
Well, both the original and a remake version of it, which is better, because Haunted Castle is kind of ass by itself.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so like I said, it certainly seems like something's happening. in the Vania franchise. So
it would be nice. It would be nice. You know, it's one of these, you know, iconic video game series. Obviously, you know, a flagship title for Konami for such a long time. And I would like to see it continue to exist as something beyond just repackaging old games and then like a marble pusher collection that I spend too much money on at the arcade.
I also have to
So
imagine that they had to have seen the success of Bloodstained and realize that there still very much is a market for for the search style, you know, Castlevania games. So
I mean, I'm sure they look at, you know, not just that, but to look at, you know, what Metroid's done, like to see how well Dread did, and then just be like, oh, people actually want new games in this style.
yeah,
So, yeah.
and not pachinko machines that are themed around it. Though again, like you said, if you want to throw those out there too, obviously Carrie is an evangelical.
I'm here for it. I'm
those,
here
so.
for it. Look, again, we call it my Meemaw gambling hours, where I go and I press my buttons and I get tickets that I don't spend on anything. Yet I want to collect a full thing of the cards just to say that I did it, and then turn them in for like the 10,000 tickets or whatever it is. It's a lot. It's a lot. I'm on the hunt, so let's see what happens.
So the next story here. Occasionally, we have to do a little look forward crossover. We have to get into
This week in politics.
Cost. Yeah, look, because again, like you can ignore politics, but politics doesn't ignore you, as Mike is always fond of saying. Obviously, here in the United States, we have the presidential election, which is coming down the home stretch. Only a couple weeks left to go. And part of one of the big focal points of this election is how the two candidates want to address the rebounding American economy, which is kind of back on the come up. The Biden administration did a pretty deft job in avoiding a full-blown recession and recovering from massive inflation, though they don't necessarily get the credit for that, I don't think, as much as people want, because prices are still pretty high and individuals are still kind of feeling the pinch of price gouging and things of that nature. One of Republican nominee Donald Trump's ideas is to kind of help the American industrial environment, is to throw pretty heavy tariffs on almost any goods that are imported into the country if he becomes president, which is something that the president kind of has a lot of lateral to do from the executive branch. You don't really need to pass laws through Congress to enact tariffs. There's a lot of flexibility there. For those that kind of don't know how tariffs work, so basically tariffs are used to sort of micro-target areas of growth inside your country where you may be struggling. So, like, let's say that you have an industry. Let's say you have a burgeoning beans industry, and currently your country gets all of its beans from another country who, sells things at a pretty low price for beans because their industry is much more robust. Well, you can throw a tariff on the beans that are coming in from other countries. And what that does is it's basically a fee that the government imposes on importers of those goods that are coming in from foreign countries. So if I'm at a bean company and I want to import foreign beans, I have to pay this extra fee on top of those beans, or I can buy beans domestically from a manufacturer that's in my country without a tariff. And tariffs are kind of meant to level the playing field when a foreign industry is kind of undercutting a domestic one, if that makes sense. So, used in a responsible manner, they can help build or prop up a domestic industry that might be struggling. Donald Trump does not want to use them in a responsible manner. He just wants to kind of he just wants to kind of throw flat tariffs on basically everything that gets imported into the country, especially from China. Okay, so one of the things that he's proposing is that basically any imports that come from China are going to get hit with a 60% tariff and 10 or 20% tariff on anything else that comes in from any other countries. Now, it'll shock you to learn He's not necessarily been consistent in his thoughts about this. He said everything from 10% tariffs to 20% tariffs to 100% tariffs to 1,000% tariffs, which is quite extreme. But how does this affect you, you may ask? Well, consider that all of the video game consoles that we buy are all manufactured and have parts that are manufactured in China.
In China.
So if you see tariffs being imposed on goods that are being imported from China, you're going to see an increase in the prices of these goods that are coming into the country. So basically, according to a report that was published by the Consumer Technology Association, they said that if the proposed Trump tariffs were to go into place, you would see video game consoles increase by nearly $250 based on those tariffs. You would also see things like laptops, tablets, smartphones, and TVs all go up in price as well. Because, again, all of those things are generally manufactured in China with components that are manufactured in China. So, and again, like, the tariffs that he's proposing would also do any component stuff as well. So even if you were a company that were like, all right, well, we'll move manufacturing to the U.S., and we're assembling, these things there. You still,
but you still have to,
right?
You still have to import, yeah.
Unless you're manufacturing every component, which you're not doing.
Which you're not. No, sure. Not happening.
So yeah, well, something to consider when weighing who you might want to vote for in a couple of weeks if you have not already voted. Yep,
I've got my voting packet that I will be filling out and dropping off. Probably sometime this week, honestly.
Yeah, I've already sent mine in. And the fundamental issue is here, and again, we've talked about this a lot more and look forward. Donald Trump either is misrepresenting what tariffs are, or he fundamentally does not understand what tariffs are, because he is under the impression that if you impose a tariff on something, it's paid for by the importing country, which is not the case. It's literally paid by the person or the company that's importing the good into the country, meaning the person who's buying it. And then that cost is not just absorbed by that person, it inevitably gets passed along to the consumer. A lot of the studies that have been done by economists have said that if the Trump tariffs go into place, the average American household would see an average increase of about $4,000 annually in terms of how much they would be spending out of pocket on things that they buy normally. So, yeah.
Sick.
Again, if you want to see consoles that are markedly more expensive, I mean, we're already kind of clutching our pearls at a $700 PS5 Pro. Just imagine if that price would then go up to about $900 thanks to tariffs being imposed. So just something to consider as we come down the home stretch in the U.S. election, because again, no matter how much you may want to turn a blind eye to politics, they impact you every day. So.
Yep.
Finally, Bandai Namco was the subject of a kind of a scathing report, in that they are trying to do layoffs, sort of.
So worth noting, we've talked a lot on this podcast about layoffs in the video game industry because we can't not talk about it because it's been ongoing for like the last 2 years now, right? But we've also noted that these things happen primarily within the United States because the United States does not have the same kind of worker protections on the books that other companies such as Japan have. So in Japan, you cannot just do these big swaths of laying off hundreds of people all at once because there are laws in place that protect workers from those kind of things happening. However, that does not mean that Japanese companies such as Bandai Namco cannot do other things to try and get people to leave. So per a Bloomberg report, approximately 200 out of 1,300 Bandai Namco employees have been sent to what they call oidashibeya, or which translates to expulsion rooms, which is an unsavory practice that unfortunately a lot of Japanese companies engage in. because rather than dealing with the very strict laws of actually what has to be done before you can dismiss an employee in Japan, they're basically designed to bore employees so severely that employees would rather just quit than have to show up and put up with what is basically just sitting in a disgustingly boring kind of room all day. So it's, you know, it's basically trying to culturally shame these people into accepting severance deals in order to circumvent the laws in Japan regarding employee dismissals. So apparently about 100 people have already resigned because of this practice. And this does coincide with several canceled projects for Bandai Namco, which included ones that were featuring characters from Naruto and One Piece, which is a couple fairly common franchises for Bandai Namco. So also a project that was originally commissioned by Nintendo. Bandai is, of course, maintaining its kind of innocence and saying that there's no oidashi beya at Bandai Namco Studios that's designed to pressure people to leave. But yeah, just very much something to keep in mind when it comes to looking at Japanese developers and publishers within the video game industry, is that even though they're not doing these, like, we're just, you know, canning 350 people off the bat because our latest quarterly report wasn't where we wanted it to be, because again, Japan has a lot of protections in place for workers. That doesn't mean that there aren't other ways that companies over there are trying to kind of lighten their employee stock, basically. So
Yep. And again, keep in mind too that Japanese developers, by way of comparison, are grossly underpaid compared to their Western counterparts. Again, like, cost of living is obviously different in different places in the world, but there's a huge pay disparity working in Japan than it is working in a Western game developer generally. So, yeah, it's just kind of gross. And again, their explanation is, sometimes people have to wait for a new project to come along, and then we'll let them do stuff. So, like, while they're denying it, they're also not, like, not denying it either. Like,
yeah.
like that statement is kind of a sort of condemnation in and of itself. And it's interesting because, you would think that in a smart world, if you do have an employee who has got some downtime, that you can find, like, some skunk work shit for them to do, maybe. Like, it seems like a waste of resources to pay somebody to fucking sit there with the hopes that they'll eventually be bored or shamed into leaving. So
yeah.
But we'll see what happens there. So that's all the news that we have this week. We're going to take one more quick break, and then we'll be back with your questions in the Dense Pixels post office. So if you are not a member of our Discord, you can go sign up at densepixels.com/fans so that you can ask us questions in the Dense Pixels post office that we will answer on the air every week. Starting with Johnny, who asked, are y'all going to miss Samantha Irvin? I had just heard this news shortly before coming on the podcast, that Samantha Irvin, the current, I would say the main ring announcer in WWE, put out a post saying that her time with the company has come to an end, which is a bummer because she was a very talented ring announcer, and WWE had been doing a lot to really promote her very much. She's a very attractive woman, and she has a good set of pipes on her. There was some speculation that this might happen because her fiance, Ricochet, who is a wrestler formerly of WWE, now in AEW, so they weren't sure how long she was going to stick around. She said at the time that he left that this would have no impact on her tenure with WWE, but things change. The thing is that, so I think by trade, before she came in, she was a singer. I think she was on, like, American Idol or something like that, or one of those, singing talent shows. So I wouldn't be surprised if the rise in notoriety that she's gotten has not led to more, like, opportunities in that field for her. and she's choosing to pursue them. Like I don't think being the ring announcer for WWE was like the pinnacle of achievement for her. So
No.
I would not be surprised if that was more to do with that as opposed to her like, oh, she's going to show up in AEW. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the case, but I will miss her. Like I said, I think she's a very good ring announcer.
I have no thoughts.
Okay.
I'm not watching wrestling. Once it shows up on Netflix, things will probably change.
There you go.
But we'll see.
Ejak asks, after seeing Dragon Age, the Dreadwolves, it's not Dragon Age Dreadwolves, it's the Veilguard now. Combat, I think I'll be taking the plunge. I plan on playing Inquisition first, but do I need to play the other two, or is there a YouTube video that I can watch?
I would say for lore purposes, you probably want to like look up. Like I don't know of any specific YouTube video, but I would say like
there are certainly Dragon Age, well, like the saga synopsises that are out there. I would say if you are going to play them, Inquisition would be the one to play because the events of Inquisition and the DLC do lead directly into what happens in this game, even though you're not controlling the same character as you were in Inquisition.
Yeah. That being said, I cannot in good faith recommend you sit down and play Dragon Age 1 or 2 these days, simply because they have not aged well. I tried playing 1 and 2 when Inquisition came out, and that's like, that's 10 years ago now, almost. And they had aged badly as of 10 years ago. So consider that, I think that the lore is very important. That being said, I also think that by and large, Inquisition kind of stood on its own. It's nice to have the background of certain characters and whatnot, but at the end of the day, the writing in Inquisition was so good that you didn't really need it. It was like nice to have, but it wasn't required. So yeah, I would say go ahead, sit down, look up some good lore dump videos on 1 and 2. And then certainly play Inquisition. I loved Inquisition. I played Inquisition and then immediately went and did it again. Like I liked it so much. And that's rare for me that I like a game that much that like I hit credits and I'm just like again and just immediately start on a new character. But I did that with Inquisition. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Veilguard. There's too much else for me to play right now, so I'm not going to jump into it right away, but it's looking good. So I hope it's good, and I hope that you enjoy it, Ejak.
Yeah. It's unlike Mass Effect, which is one story that's just told throughout 3 games. Like the Dragon Age series is not that. Like all of the games, though there is certainly characters and lore, an event through line that continues through all of them, and choices that you make in the other games do carry forward. It's not as essential to go back and play the old games as it is in something like Mass Effect. So yeah, playing just Inquisition will be fine. Honestly, if you find a pretty comprehensive lore video, I don't even necessarily know that you need to play Inquisition. I think you could jump right into Veilguard and
probably
make it happen.
Probably. So. But it is, I think, just given everything with Solus and whatnot, like you do kind of want to have that lore as far as like what his whole deal is. But yeah, I mean, Inquisition was good enough for me that I like played it, and that's like, it's a lengthy game. That's like a 50, 60 hour game. And I immediately was like, I'm right back in doing it again. So yeah.
Mark asks, what is the farthest you've scrolled down the page on a sale and found something that you bought? There's some outright trash down there, but sometimes a hidden gem will pop out. I used to always go through the Humble sales in full, just because you never know what you might find down there. Because the way that Humble does their sale pages is they put up like the first page will be like ranked in order of popularity. And then everything from there on is alphabetical, so like you kind of have to go through to find some of the hidden gems. But yeah, there are definitely sometimes if you know what you're looking for, some stuff that you could find down near the bottom of the list that is worth the $2 that you're being asked to pay for it, essentially.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I typically I buy things on sale when they're wish listed, so.
Muck asks, It's a new question to ask her, I think. Carrie, last week you admitted that you collect cards. I'm dipping back into Magic myself. How do you prefer to build your decks? Do you find a cool card that you like and build around it? Do you aim for themes or synergies? I admittedly know little about Pokemon, and then they asked me, have I ever played Pokemon, Magic, or Yu-Gi-Oh?
Well, we'll start with you. Have you ever played?
So I used to play Magic a lot back in the day when it first came around. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons that I left Boy Scouts is because they outlawed the playing of Magic the Gathering at Boy Scout functions, and I was very into Magic. I got out of Magic in my late teenage years just because it started to get too expensive. Now, I haven't played any other CCGs. I did get very into Android Netrunner, which is a limited card game that came out about... It's a remake of an old trading card game called Netrunner. And Android Netrunner came out about 12 years ago. And I was really into that scene. Like, I was playing in that scene competitively for a couple of years before I kind of bowed out. And I really haven't gotten into any other card games since then because I just don't have the time to keep up with them.
So I have been collecting new Pokemon cards, yes. I got really into the 151 set when that came out, like around this time last year. It's mostly collecting, and then I realized, like, oh, I have a lot of cards. I got a lot of new cards. And so I started kicking around the idea of building a deck. Now, I still have not yet built a new deck. That being said, what I'm probably going to do is just, like, pick a couple cards that I think are cool, you know, a couple EX evolutions, and like build a deck around them. I truthfully do not know what the current meta is. I don't know what the current strategies are. When the last time I played Pokemon cards seriously, I was from the ages of, let's say, 9 to 13. So I was going 3 times a week to Owings Mills Mall, to the Wizards of the Coast store, because they had the Pokemon League. So my parents would drop my ass off, basically tell me, don't do anything stupid, don't get kidnapped, and just leave me at the mall by myself to play cards for several hours each week. And nothing bad ever happened. But yeah, so when I was a kid, I had 3 decks. And one of my decks was basically, because I got really into like playing the card game, I guess, kind of seriously. Like when I joined the league was right around the time the Gen 2 cards started coming out. And so I had a deck that I think I bought a pre-built deck that was like a Feraligatr deck. And then I like modified it with other cards that I liked. And so it was like taking a pre-built and then just like changing it to suit what I liked. So that was a water deck with some electric types in there as well. And then I had a deck that was psychic and fire types, and I built that deck basically because I liked Mewtwo and I wanted a Mewtwo focused deck. So that's what I did, was I had a Mewtwo deck. And then I had another deck that was it was a grass deck with Scissor as well. So that was another one where it was just like, I like this Pokemon, I'm building a deck to service this card. So yeah, that was basically how I did it as a kid, and truthfully that's probably how it's going to be as an adult, where I just go, I like this one, and then I just build a deck around it.
I mean, that's how I kind of did it too. Like I never liked meta decking or anything like that. I always liked having a cool card or a way that I wanted to win the game and construct a deck around that. And again, this is more for Netrunner because I was a dumb child when I played Magic and didn't really understand how deck construction worked on a intimate level. But playing Netrunner, that's all we would do is, every week it was Netrunner night, and we'd go to the card shop for 4 hours and just play with our group that we had there. And all you're fucking doing is playing, tweaking, taking cards out, putting them in, that kind of shit, and just kind of deck testing and all that good shit to get ready for whatever tournament was coming up around the bend. So I really miss Android Netrunner. Like that game was fucking awesome. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to get back into doing Pokemon more seriously, especially now that my boyfriend works at a tabletop and card game shop. So they do Pokemon every week. So it's more about making sure that my schedule lines up with when he is working on Pokemon nights so that I can go over and do that. But yeah, it's fun. I'm glad I'm getting back into it. For me, getting into like the kind of local tabletop scene out here, like I play D&D every week at a different local store. And that for me was a way to kind of like meet new people after moving 2,800 miles. And so I'm trying to do the same thing by starting to pick up Pokemon again. It's just using it as a way to like meet other folks who have the same interests that I
met one of my best friends through Netrunner. So, and like I said, bizarre that like at the time I lived, for those of you that are familiar with the Baltimore area, I lived in Cockeysville, and the store that I went to play Netrunner was in Canton. So like,
that's a bit of a hike.
Yeah, a little bit of a hike. So, and I met someone there, and we got to talking, and it turns out that he lived 3 apartment buildings down from me in Cockeysville, and we just just happened to live literally 500 feet from each other. So that's funny. That was the beginning of a still going friendship to this day. So
yeah. No, that's great. I honestly, I still have all of my old Pokemon cards from when I was a child. I still have all of my old decks put together. I never like de-decked them or anything like that. I got into Yu-Gi-Oh very briefly right when that first came out, and so my deck is just like all of the cards that were big on the show. So it's like I got Blue Eyes White Dragon, I got Harpy Lady Sisters, I got Dark Magician, I got all of them. Like, it's probably not a very good deck, but I thought I was very cool.
Finally, T-Wash asks, what world do you think is cool and amazing, but would not live there? For them, it's the world of Saints Row.
New York?
But New York with people running around with giant purple dildos that they're using.
Oh no, I mean that would be better than actual New York, or would it?
I mean, that sounds like New York in like the 70s, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about like I think New York is cool today, but I also would not live in New York today. I don't know, like Skyrim maybe, like. I think Skyrim is very cool. I think like the Elder Scrolls universe at large is extremely cool and has wonderful lore and so much going on. But also it's like if I was just like an average person, I would fucking hate it there. Like, like there's dragons and magic and I'm just like some elf bitch just trying to live my life,
For me, it's the world of Sanctuary. I think is fascinating from the Diablo franchise, but I don't think you'd ever want to live there. It's not really a place where prosperity and good health are in wide availability. Let's say it's a place with a lot of strife and poorness and violence and shit like that. But from a lore standpoint, I think they've done a phenomenal job of building out that world in throughout the Diablo series. So. Mm-hmm. That is going to be it for your questions. Again, thank you guys in the Discord for submitting those. Don't forget to join the Discord, densepixels.com/fans. If you are listening to this podcast on a podcast service, we do also publish it on YouTube every week, which you can check out by going to youtube.com/densepixels. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, we also do put out a regular old podcast. And so does TNP Studios. There's a lot of shows like Black on Black Cinema and the Nerdpocalypse and Look Forward that you can check out. And you can find those wherever you download podcasts. And of course, you can also sign up for premium content by going to densepixels.com/premium. It's just $5 a month. It does get you the weekly full episode of the Look Forward Political Podcast, at least usually twice the length of the free version that we put out. I know that we're starting to talk about getting some No Time to Bleed back in the hopper. Me and Micah owe you guys a Mission Impossible 7 review because I've got a lot of things to say about that, and I think I might want to do. I haven't talked to Micah about this yet. I think I kind of want to do a James Bond tier ranking because that's what all the kids that's all the kids are doing on the internet now.
Ew.
So
I would personally be interested in jumping in on that as well.
Yeah. So hopefully more to come from the premium content. But again,
Mm-hmm.
Look Forward by itself in these turbulent political times is certainly worth it, all on its own. That is going to be it for us this week. Thank you guys very much for watching and listening, and we'll see you all the next time.
See ya.
You're watching the Dense Pixels YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button while you're here and make sure you check out our weekly podcast where we discuss the latest gaming news and our impressions on what games we've been playing.